Welcome back to Stately Investing, everybody. In today's episode, we are going to examine my November 2020 dividends. We're going to look at the tracker. We're going to see how I did compared to the previous month and the previous quarter, and also the year over year. But first, if you want a channel that is going to help you speed up your journey to financial freedom through dividend growth investing, Stately Investing is the place for you. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, and let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to Stately Investing. Sorry I took a few weeks off. I actually started a new job, and so I haven't put out a video in a couple of weeks, but we are back, and I wanted to cover my November dividends. So we are here in the dividend income tracker, and for those of you that are new, this dividend income tracker actually keeps track of all of the data for my dividends. And first, it started with my M1 account, and that's the tab that we're on now. But secondly, it also now tracks all of my dividends across all of my accounts, and we'll jump into that in a second. But first, let's look at my M1 account because that is the main source of my dividends, as you will see. And the gray columns are where I include items that I need to actually type in, so where I need to input data, and then everything else is calculated off of that. So at the end of November, you can see the fund size in my M1 account was $41,107. And over the course of that month, I added $1,250. And so those are the two inputs there. And then I also put in how many dividends I earned. So that was $92.47 for the month. So not a bad month, but you can actually see that it was down from the previous month. And so you might be wondering, well, Burnett, you talk about dividend growth and you focus on how your dividends should be growing. And so why is that number down? Well, you have to remember that dividends are paid out by companies, and most of these companies pay on a quarterly cycle, right? So a quarter being every 3 months, and there are 4 quarters in a year. And so that means this number really should be compared to the previous quarter where those same companies paid out their dividend, right? So in October, different companies for the most part were paying me dividends than the ones that were paying out in November. So what I actually need to look at is 3 months ago to see what was paying out, because again, remember, every quarter, so every 3 months, the same companies are paying out, right? Are the same ones included. So unless I added companies or subtracted companies, right? So if we look at not this quarter or not this month and not this month, but we look at this month, you can see that $59.30 is actually much less than $92.47. So we actually saw a substantial increase from the previous set of the same companies paying out their dividend. So that is something that we love to see. The rest of these numbers I'm not going to get into too much. This one is a fun column to look at, which is your average dividend income over the trailing 6 months. And this is a more kind of smoothing out of what your growth looks like and gives you a better idea of, hey, here's what my average looks like, and that average should be going up, right? Because I'm looking at 6 months, that kind of smooths out any fluctuations, and it focuses on the overall picture, which in this case is going up. That's what you want to see. So, no companies were really cutting dividends in the over that time, or if they are, they're not in my portfolio anymore. So that's the overall number. That's a good indicator of how you're doing. But let's jump over to my total dividends data so you guys can see exactly what my dividends look like for across all of my portfolios. All right, so we are in the total dividends data tab of my dividend tracker, and we're looking at the end of November 2020. So if we look at my M1 account, right, that was the account we just examined in the previous tab, $92.47, which is great, right? If we look at all of my other accounts, you can see again that this amount is down significantly from the previous month and the month before that. However, so that's $153.77. However, if you look at August, the end of August, that was only $85.20, right? So if we look at that 3 month comparison, we're actually doing fairly well. And that's what you would typically want to be seeing, right? You want to see, hey, this is pretty stable. Or it's significantly over. In this case, it's almost double what I made in the 3 months prior. You can see that my other account that makes up a major portion of my dividends is my Robinhood account, and you guys can check out my other video on M1 versus Robinhood and what I use those accounts for and why they're different. But overall, the strategy in my Robinhood account is to focus on dividend companies as well, but it is on undervalued dividend companies. So I tend to buy larger chunks of shares in my Robinhood account when I think something is undervalued. I haven't been doing that in previous months since the market has just been consistently growing. But you guys, like I said, can check out that other video, and I will put a link up top. The rest of my accounts really haven't done much in November, but if you guys pay attention here, you can see that we have a cycle that is coming up where $620 happened in at the end of September here, and so the December comparison should be higher than this amount, right? So if we're over $620, that'll be good in December. Also, December is always my biggest month. So if we scroll back a little bit, we'll scroll back to the previous December, one more month there. You can see in December of 2019, I actually made a total of $782.14. And that's because I have this one fund that pays out yearly. And so that hits at the end of the year, and that is a big chunk of money in that one account. So even, just kind of disregarding that in the November sense, right? Like it was $150 here. It'll be even bigger in December because of that one fund. So I think this will be our biggest dividend month yet in December, and you guys should stay tuned for that video. The other thing I wanted to point out here is I've started putting in year over year numbers here to see how I've been doing year over year with my growth. And right now the numbers look huge, and that's because I just really started this dividend journey in September, or at least started tracking it with my M1 account of last year, right? So if we scroll back to September of 2019, you can see that's where I really started with my M1 account. You can see that nice 85-cent number there, right? And it's slowly been growing over time to the point that we are now, which is great, but that's why the numbers look so big. So the year over year comparison looks at, hey, what was your number 12 months ago, right? And then what's the difference? You can see that with the September number, it was 150% growth. We were about a 700% growth. And then this is, over 1,000% growth, which is awesome, right? And then we'll check in December. I don't expect it to be that high because, hey, my M1 account won't be the majority of this total, but it will be interesting to see how it compares to the previous year. Lastly, we're going to summarize this and look in the monthly dividends chart so you guys can get a visual view of what this all looks like. All right, so we are in the monthly chart here, and again, you guys can see the growth here. And what I love about this chart is that it has two trend lines, which are very important, right? So the blue represents the M1 portion of my dividends each month, and then the red represents my total dividends each month. And so typically what I want to see is I want to see a large number, right? I want to see a large number with the red columns and just overall seeing this number kind of go up, right? And again, if we're looking at, guys can see it visually here, what I was talking about before. We have this 153.77, my total number in the end of November. And then if we look at the end of August, it was 85.20, right? So these are really the two columns we're comparing against each other to make sure that they're always bigger. But also what I want to see with these trend lines is like, hey, my total dividends is growing actually faster than my M1 account, right? And so all that means is like, if you look at the slope of these lines, the M1 account, yes, it's growing, and that's great, right? You never want to see it going down overall, but what we're actually seeing is that my total dividends across all my accounts is growing faster than my M1 account. And really, I think the reason for that is that I have been putting larger chunks of money into my Robinhood account. And then also the power of some of my other accounts are larger, right? The fund size is larger, which means the dividends are larger. And so as those get reinvested, right, they're going to outpace the smaller accounts, right? And so that is the power of compounding. I just want to hit this point again for all of you guys that are new or watching this video for the first time, is that if you are investing with a dividend reinvestment strategy and a dividend growth strategy, the biggest asset that you have is time and compounding, right? So time will allow your money to work for you, so that if you start today, 10 years from now, your portfolio is going to look a lot better, even if you didn't touch it, right? Even if you never invested another dollar, the dividends reinvesting themselves is actually going to compound for you, and over time is going to make your portfolio stronger. And that just builds upon itself, right? The compounding means that it builds upon itself. So not only are you getting those original dividends that you invested in, but you're also reinvesting them. So then you're getting a multiplier, right? And it becomes a snowballing effect. So that's what we really want to see with my total dividend dividends slope line here is that it is growing fast, and that my M1 is also growing fast because I'm putting more money into that account. If you guys remember, right now I'm on a plan where I put in $250 every week, and so that is slowly but surely just building my account, and that is my periodic investment, and where it's just that happens no matter what, right? So another piece of advice is always pay yourself first. So that money just comes out of my account when I get paid, and it goes straight into my M1 account without me doing anything or manipulating it or looking at the numbers, right? That allows me to resist the temptation to, potentially buy or sell things that I shouldn't be. It just automatically goes in and gets allocated the way that it should. And that's what I love M1 for, because it's very smart about how it allocates my money when it goes in for buying. So overall, this month was a good month. I'm glad to be back doing videos. I think for the end of the year, we're going to have some exciting content, so stay tuned. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys have in your portfolio and how it's doing. I'd love to know how you guys are all succeeding out there. And feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you next week.